My Hero Academia, Chapter 195, titled Clash, Class A versus Class B, continues on with the joint training arc, with the revelation that this time around, Shinso, of all people, will be joining the hero course. A lot of people take note of the fact that he has not just a kind of mask like thing, but he's also wearing bandages or wrappings similar to Aizawa, which reinforces a lot of people's comments about him being Aizawa's tired son. I find that absolutely hilarious. Although his uniform mostly consists of his gym uniform, so he hasn't gone full hero quite yet. Aizawa goes on to explain that since Shinso will be joining the hero course, he will kind of be doubly paired up on teams. He will be paired up on one team for Class A and one team for Class B during this exercise. Shinsu kind of goes on to introduce himself and say that he has the resolve and determination to become a great hero. So he's ready to throw down with the best of them. He's ready to battle with the best of them, kids. He also goes on to state that he has no intention of making friends, which gains him a little bit of an applause from Class A. And a little bit of kind of, you know, I guess you could call it kudos from Monoma. Uh, just because the idea of him being like, hey, I don't intend to make any friends here during all of this. It kind of gets him a little bit of kudos on that part. The exercise will be a combat training in the industrial zone. This is the same place I believe that we saw the race when Midoriya had, after Midoriya had come back from his first round of training with Gran Torino and the events with the Hero Killer, once he learned how to activate full cowling. Just like in the original first exercise, it'll be a villains versus heroes kind of setup where four members of the opposing villains team must be locked up by the heroes team. Ida takes a little bit of a offense to this, but it's more of a what you consider yourself. And I love the jailhouse that has like all the principal Nezu kind of colorations and decals on it. It's just so humiliating. So naturally, friends will be taking pictures of all of it and just mocking the ever loving crap out of you. The statement of Shinso joining one of each team kind of comes down to the fact that while, yes, the teams will have the advantage of numbers, the disadvantage of having Shinso on your team comes from the fact that he isn't as experienced in terms of the hero course, and there's also the fact that nobody really understands how to work with them. Each class has a bit of camaraderie that is especially shown when you show the pairings of the teams. Some of them, show are doing like similar movements, or and some feel a little bit disjointed. You can kind of tell who is kind of in sync in terms of how they're going to operate. Um, Shinso kind of goes around and says, "Thank you for having me for each of the classes," and we find that he'll be on Class A's very first team up, and he'll be opposed on Class B during their very last matchup. So, that the very last matchup includes Deku, and Uraraka goes on to state, hey, it'll be a bit of a rematch. Deku kind of goes on to say it's just like, that's interesting over the fact that, the first time I saw the vestiges of the previous wielders of All for One, I mean One for All, Shinso was there as well. So it's very convenient that he's showing up here just as, I'm starting to have dreams of the Vigises once again. He also goes on to wonder if there might be a little bit more to it on top of that. We also find that Midnight and All Might will be looking in on this little event, so it'll be pretty interesting. All Might goes on to say that Class A has the advantage of, having, a lot of they've already been in several crises, so they're very natural at dealing with kind of tense situations. However, Class B has not been slacking whatsoever, given the fact that, they've been studying, they've been diligent, and because of that, they're a little bit further ahead in their hero studies rather than Class A. So, Class A has a lot of the real world experience, whereas Class B has a lot of the more studious nature and stuff like that. So this is also a competition to see what's impacted them more. More hands-on situations or more of the regular UA curriculum. So the first match starts off, and Froppy kind of goes in for surveillance using her camouflage, which Shinso notes that as soon as you're aware of the fact that she's out there camouflage, she's actually fairly easy to spot. So it's more of a if you're not sure of what to look for, you'll easily miss her kind of thing. They also go on to state, Kaminari kind of goes in and states like, "Hey, I'm probably going to be the biggest target, considering that I have a little bit of an inability to have range. Not to mention the girl with the vine hair, Ibarra, will probably be her Kaminari's biggest weakness since he's already lost to her beforehand." Um, you know the idea of both sides as very intuitively stated by Shinso is the fact that each side will go after the most problematic person. For Class A side, that person is Kaminari, since his power has so much rain and destructive power. For Class B, that's Abara, because she also has a lot of range and a lot of power in her attacks. Koda's animals, the pigeons he's communicating, come back stating that they've located Ibarra and she's kind of just out in the open. Um, they get ready to go all in. However, all of a sudden, both Froppy and Kirishima are kind of blindsided by Juroda Shishida. Juruto Shishida. First time saying that name, so it's kind of like a little bit hard to get out. We come to find out that the person with the quirk Beast, his thing isn't so much that his quirk is just like this, basically just looking like Beast from the X-Men. It comes from the fact that he can transform into a more, muscular, augmented form, stronger, tougher, more capable. The only downside being that he becomes kind of, crazed in the form. It's kind of like he gets a little high off of it a little bit. He gets this kind of emotional high off of the whole situation. So he goes a little wild in that case. They've managed to, use Ibarra to kind of lure them out, considering that they knew that she would be the target of Class A, and they did their best to take out both Froppy and Kirishima because Froppy is very agile and Kirishima is very tough. So they went after them first in order to, incapacitate them while they take out Kaminari beforehand, because with his abilities it's just like gotta get him as quickly as possible, don't want to give him the opportunity to do anything like that would really cause us any trouble. We also have Kosei Subarabi, who has the ability to create solid air, who's learned to kind of create more multi-dimensional objects with the solid air, and he uses this to trap Koda in an air prison to keep him from being able to communicate with any animals. Just like during the provisional license exam, where he had summoned a whole bunch of animals to kind of blindside the other team. So, Class 1B has been showing a lot of potential here, and that's good because we haven't really gotten to see too much of what they could do up until this point. So I'm just glad we're really getting to see them show their stuff. A voice calls out to Shishida that it's time to finish them off, and he agrees to this, only for it to be discovered, but that this was Shinso lulling him in with a new gadget that he has for this particular exam, which is called the Artificial Vocal Cords Persona Code. This allows him to mimic the voice of Kosei in order to lure in Jurota, and get him to like brainwash him essentially. So now with Jurota under Shinso's ability, now it's time for him to wreak all havoc. And I loved seeing this because this already shows that Shinso has found a way around one of his weaknesses. I was wondering for the longest time what that apparatus around his neck was, because it's obvious it would go over his face, but what was the functionality of it? I figured it was kind of to misdirect where his voice was coming from, to make the enemy kind of think that it was coming from an ally, but I didn't think it would go so far as to make his voice sound like other people. And from the way he's turning one of the knobs on the side, it's obvious he can adjust like the pitch and the vocal range of it in order to get it just right. So an awesome play by Shinso, although it's obvious this will only have so many uses before people catch on to it. So whether or not he will come out, he will be the deciding factor in this initial battle is yet to be shown. Not to mention, Hiryu Rin hasn't quite shown up just yet. So we have another member of Class 1B just kind of out there with us not really knowing what he can do and what he's about. At least I don't think he has any particular abilities or powers. 1B is just still a little too hard to keep up with. What they can do and what their abilities all are. But I'm just really glad, again, that we are getting this story arc. 1B is criminally underdeveloped. They just don't have enough, appearances to kind of keep them within the same, I guess you could call it, what would you call it? I guess ability set. They don't feel like they really have the same kind of drive or push that Class 1A has. So having this little moment kind of gets them a little bit more in the spotlight. Hiryu Rin, I think his ability was just like a strength boosting thing. I love the way that he's kind of dressed as a Chinese hopping vampire. So it'll be interesting to see if he might end up being a bit of a deciding factor as well. Will Kirishima and Froppy regain consciousness in order to rejoin the battle? Or will, Class 1B manage to recover from Shinso's brainwashing? We'll just have to wait and see. So tell me your thoughts on this chapter in the comment section below. Leave me a like if you liked what I said, or a dislike if you didn't, and subscribe for more My Hero Academia. There's a rumble in the Iron Jungle.